Hey, how's it going? Welcome to my review of Shadowrun Hong Kong. And just like a lot of RPGs, you get to make your own little character, and you get to pick his attributes and stats. You get to choose something that they call etiquettes. These etiquettes will help you manipulate NPCs and their dialogue to help get you what you want. And then also your skills come into play as well on top of the etiquettes to further expand. And even class, there was a few times where I picked a shaman spell, and anything that might have been shaman related as far as magic goes also influenced the different dialogue options I could choose from in order to get access codes, items, or to get out of a fight in general. So for this, I decided to make a grave mistake and go with a street samurai by the name of jc.exe with the street name of war code. Now the reason I say this is a mistake, I'll get into that a little bit later. But as for now, you arrive in Hong Kong, you meet up with your foster brother Duncan, who is rendezvousing with you in order to go meet with the foster father. And soon enough, things don't go very well without spoiling a whole lot. Things just get bad very, very quickly for both your character and the foster brother, forcing your character to go underground and become a Shadowrunner working under the services of a criminal organization, while in the meantime, you are trying to figure out information of what happened to your foster father. So this is a role-playing game. Now let's talk about the RPG and the decisions you can make and the actual characters themselves. Now the decisions you make, for me, didn't feel like they had any weight at all. I would choose a decision, and typically I would choose some decisions that would be kind of a smart-ass remark to a particular character, NPC, that's a story character, and I would also do things that would probably not be the best thing to do. And there was never really any consequence. There was only one mission, and this is a bit of a spoiler. I'm gonna go ahead and spoil this because I think it's good to know, because if you don't do this particular decision right, it's gonna ruin it for pretty much the rest of the game. There's only one mission, and that is the one where you get the zombie samurai guy named Gaichu. Do not choose to kill him. He is the only other character that you can get for your entire roster. There are other characters that you can bring on your missions, but none of them have dialogue, none of them have backstory, and you have to pay money to use them. And that is completely stupid. Do not pay money to use any of the other characters unless for some reason you don't have a character because you keep dying, apparently. But the game's not that hard. You really shouldn't lose anyone ever, especially with the healing items that bring you back to life after you've fallen. Those are pretty overpowered. So don't use those. Only use the ones you actually get that are free. They all end up living in your base, which is like a ship. I named my ship the Kraken. You get to choose a name for it, preset name, through the dialogue options with one of the story characters. So if you kill Gaichu, you lose a story character. You lose a little bit of extra content where you get to help him with a certain mission that has to do with his background. And he's the coolest character. He is the only cool character I enjoyed. I mean, it's a zombie samurai, for crying out loud. I mean, how much more cool can that be? Now, when you're going through these missions and you're making these decisions and you're finishing them up, and they usually leave you with some sort of choice, every single time there was no consequence. I always got paid, even if it was against the wishes of your client. You still went out. There's always a justification to your decision. The characters always support you. No one disagrees with you. There's no disagreement. Or if they do disagree, they're like, yeah, I wouldn't have done it that way, but I see why you did it. They're always compromising with you. No one gets upset with you. You are the leader. Even your client, who's supposed to be this big bad boss, is like, hey, you sure weren't supposed to do that, but I still think it was a great idea. Good job. Another example of this is you're sent on a mission to basically remove somebody from power. He's become a rival gang to your current boss, and this person needs to be removed from the picture. Not killed, just simply removed, to send them a message. And when you go and do this, you basically bring him to your side, and there's a way of disrespecting him or being respectful. And I chose to disrespect the guy left and right, even to the point where my boss was like, knock it off. This isn't good. And there's been a few times where they insinuate like this character is probably going to retaliate. You're getting the impression that he's so angry that at some point he's going to betray you. And it never happens. There's no point. I could have been nice to him. I could have been mean to him. It had no effect. It was not important. I felt nothing I did was important. The only one that was important was getting that zombie samurai. Now, earlier when I spoke about how I regretted becoming a street samurai, The reason I say this is because it really limited my options in almost every single form of the game. All I could really do was kill people, and that was fine. And sometimes there would be options for me to choose strength-related dialogue to kind of intimidate someone to do what I want. And that wasn't very beneficial because everything else tended to be more towards being a decker or a rigger for dealing with certain environmental issues in the game where you can hack things or send your drone into stuff if you had those things. But I didn't have them. My guy was a street samurai. He went around, destroying people. That was his goal. And he did it quite well. He was pretty good at it. But the only problem was I had to bring Isabel, a character you get in there who's a decker, and I had to bring her for every single mission. It drove me nuts. I could not stand it. And it was horrible. But I had to bring her because she's the only one that I had that could go into the Matrix without hiring someone, which is pointless. Like I was discussing earlier, it was completely pointless to hire people. But I'll go in the Matrix a little later. But it just made for a much more rougher experience for me. I felt that it really limited who I could bring. It was always my main character, no matter what you had to bring him, and Isabel. And then I had very little room to go, well, I like this guy, but I can't bring him. So, but because I might want this guy's drone to go infiltrate an event. So now let's talk about the audio. The audio and the visuals is probably one of the best parts of this game. All the artwork is great. I love the scene. Every scene is unique, it's different, and it's brought together with a great musical track and ambiance. Whether you're at a con, you're on a ship, you're in a busy Hong Kong street, there's a lot of different areas, or even a museum. And then the only thing that kind of threw me off is every now and then an audio bug would come in, and that bug was if a character came on scene and then left the scene, like an NPC, they would have footsteps. The footstep sounds would stay after some of these NPCs would leave the scene, and if it was early on in the mission and you're in this particular area for a while, it gets really, really irritating when you're reading hundreds of words of dialogue and all you hear is thud, 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 thud the entire time, plus the music and everything else in the combat. But the combat is another thing. The combat sounds, they're all right. The guns sound great, especially the sniper rifles. Sniper rifles have a good base to them, and when you get a critical hit and it kills your target, it makes a nice crunch sound that is so satisfying. Blood goes everywhere, and they're down hard. And that is probably one of the best parts about the combat is when you get something like that to happen, and you just want more of it. You want more. You want to keep doing it. All right, so let's talk about the combat and the actual gameplay. To me, the combat was all right. It was a lot of point-and-click frustration. You would go to click things, and sometimes it wouldn't be very responsive, and you click again, and you click again, and it was really irritating when sometimes you would go to click, and it didn't click the actual character, it clicks next to it, and then your character ends up running right next to him, wasting your turn, or action point, whatever you want to call it. And it was very much the same when you actually opened your inventory, or the menu, I should say, the actual menu. And when you open the menu, sometimes I would have to double click or triple click. It was just not a very responsive menu. And that was something that really needs to be polished up. I thought it was kind of ridiculous at some point. There was also some unique skill set combos you could put together. For example, if I brought Duncan along with my character, what would happen is he's got an ability where he could arrest people since his background as a cop. And what would happen is I would go up, I would pommel strike someone, especially like a captain, soldier, or someone that's pretty tough. I would go and pommel strike them a couple times, cause them to get the stun effect. And if they're stunned, I have a 100% chance with Duncan on his turn to run up and subdue them. It was called subdue. And a little animation where it looks like he's trying to handcuff them, and it just takes him right out of the fight. It was a really powerful combination to get rid of someone real quick. Thought it was a little overpowered, but I thought it was really fun. Now, I played the game on its hardest difficulty, and I did not get that much of a challenge. There's a few times I had a few issues, like the larger fights, where it's harder to kind of keep control of a fight where your men are completely outnumbered. But overall, the AI is dumber than a rock. A lot of the times they'll move, and they only do one move. They might move and shoot, or they might just move and then stand there. And there's been a lot of times where they'll just move, and they won't take the shot. They're dumb. They run around, and that's their turn. And they could have taken advantage of a possible kill. They could have taken an advantage to really hurt some of your characters, but instead they made that decision to just randomly move somewhere. So a lot of their movements didn't make sense, and that was really easy to take advantage of. So the AI was not very bright. They don't even use like an Overwatch system, kind of like what you can use, where you could set up your turn to just get ready to attack someone that moves within a certain space, and you'll attack them while they're en route to their movement. But the AI doesn't do that, so you get free reign to kind of walk where you want without any repercussions of needing to line of sight the enemy. So let's talk about the Matrix. I hated the Matrix, partly because I was stuck with every mission bringing Isabel, because she was the only character I had who could jack in and do these Matrix events. And when you first do it, you're like, hey, this is kind of cool. What you do, you basically go in, you're an avatar of yourself, and you're avoiding these patrols, and these patrols have line of sight. And if you get caught by one, you have a certain amount of a trace meter that if they meet this trace, you get invaded by a hacker and a bunch of other stuff inside the Matrix to attack you. And you have certain abilities to fight them off. It's a little different. And then when you get to these nodes, you have to hack them. The hacking is pretty straightforward. It takes a little getting used to. You just have to play a little memory game of hitting the numbers as they're shown, and then repeating the process to increase your time limit. So when you're ready, you can click another button, which allows you to play another memory game, essentially, of trying to figure out which of a sequence of these symbols is being shown to you in quick little flashcard events. And it's not hard, you'll get used to it, and then you can start knocking them out real quick. But you're gonna do this so often, it's so repetitive. There's also a few times you're gonna have to do it while you're in combat, and what that means is when you're plugging in and your team is defending your hacker while they're hacking the system, it's going to be turn-based, making it even longer, especially if you run into trouble inside the system. Now you have like essentially two battlefields going on. You got the little battlefield event inside the Matrix, the one that's going on outside the Matrix, and it makes for a really, really repetitive process, and it just becomes really painful to do and kind of frustrating, and you just kind of really get sick of it. I got sick of it. I could not stand it anymore. I hated Isabel, I hated the Matrix, and it really, really took away the experience for me. So the missions, it's a mission-based game. Once you actually get into the hub, the city hub, I should call it, and start getting your missions from your computer, that's when the game officially really opens up to you. And there's a lot of variations to these missions, and I really enjoyed them. That was the best part of the game. You could go from doing a stealth mission to a kind of a hit mission. Like I was telling you earlier, you had to go and confront a rival gang member. You didn't have to kill him. You couldn't kill him. That wasn't one of the options. And it was very unique, especially when you actually went to the con. When you went to the convention center, it was a Decker Con. I was actually really disappointed with that mission. This is, again, why I wished I picked something else other than Street Samurai. I now have a character at a nerd con who all he probably does is eat his Wheaties and throw a sword around. So, and your goal is to intermingle with a lot of the NPCs and have dialogue. And my guy could not have dialogue for the life of him about anything because the computer was basically alien to him. If it was a sword con, different story. He could tell you all about his sword. There was another cool mission where you basically went to a museum. The museum was a mission where you basically robbed the joint. You went and took as much artifacts of value as you could. And that was a lot of fun, but the reward was substantially low. You only had to steal a certain amount, but if you stole extra, you would complete these optional objectives. It went from 5,000 to a staggering 10,000. And I got roughly 11,000. I was able to get out of there with 11,000 without alerting the security. Now, the problem with this is after turning in the mission, and I was like, wow, this is going to be payday, man. We got so much extra. I only got like, 1,900 for my reward. And I was like, really? Come on. And a lot of items in the stores are expensive. I was really hoping for that payday, too. So I was really disappointed with what the reward was. And while you were in the museum, one of the coolest things that happened was I got to fight some zombies and mummies, or whatever you want to call them, gargoyles, I don't even know. And because they came to life, there's no real explanation, but they came to life, and they're attacking your team when you try to make your way out of this place, or retrieve whatever it is you're there to retrieve. And these things, when a certain type of them would hit you, and then all of a sudden your guy would disappear, and when it finally came to that character's turn, what happened was that zombie teleported with you to this other dimension just to fight you in a one-on-one mono-e-mono fight. And I thought that was really cool, and unfortunately they only did it once. I was really hoping to see more creative combat experience like this particular one. It was very different. I loved it, and that was all that was it. That was all they did. Another one of my favorite missions was a mission where you kind of were in between two teams that wanted something from you. One was your client, and the other is a rival to the client, and they're both wanting something that you just stole for them. And you kind of got in this position where you're like, hey man, I don't work for you, and hey man, you kind of betrayed me. So, but you still have the option to choose who you want to sell this thing to. And I made the decision to say, screw you both, and took out all of them. And that was a huge fight, probably the hardest fight and the most entertaining fight in the entire game. It had a lot of strategy involved. I tried a few things, and it wasn't until I went, okay, let's do this. Pull out, let them whittle each other down while I pick off from people from the sidelines. And that was one of the coolest missions I got to do. I had a lot of fun with it. It took a lot of turns. I was spending probably 30 minutes in that fight, just tactically trying to keep all my guys alive, forcing them to fight each other, and then I would do some guerrilla tactics. Now, I want to talk about the inventory and the loot system, which I feel is probably the most number one thing that ruined the game for me. And you really don't feel its full weight of why this is the worst part of the game until you get to the end and finish the game. Because what you realize is there's no real way to farm money. There's no real way of telling how much money you're going to get by the end of the game. So you're kind of waiting for stuff to unlock from the vendors. So you can either start buying things right away to make your character a little bit better, and then wait for stuff to unlock and buy some more upgrades. But your money's limited. What'll happen is you're better off just waiting until the last set of items get unlocked and then spending all of your money on what you can to make your character amazing. Do not spend a single dime on anybody else, only your character, because the way the system works in the inventory is if you buy something for, let's say, Duncan, like I did. I wanted to buy him a sniper rifle. I thought it would be good for him. I was stupid. I shouldn't have bought it for him at all, ever. I have no snipers. He's not a sniper. The weapons that they have, their armor, they kind of grow on them. They'll level up with them. They change over time as they level up. So there's no point upgrading your other characters, just yours. And even if you do give them a weapon, they always unequip it. They don't hold on to it. So every mission, you kind of get this equipment loadout, and you give them stuff. Usually you end up just giving them health potions or grenades, and that's it. And same for your character, except you might buy some armor, a weapon, cybernetics, and get him all upgraded. But you want to save all your money. You want to wait for that pivotal moment where everything's unlocked, buy the best stuff you could possibly buy. Because I'm going to guess I had about... I would have earned no more than maybe 15,000 in the entire game. There's stuff that costs 3,000 in that game and 2,000, and you'll quickly just run out of money. So don't use money for bribes. Don't use money to upgrade any of your other characters, and pretty much don't use money for anything unless you absolutely need to early on. Wait till everything unlocks and get it, because money is limited. And you're not going to find that many weapons out in the world. I think I might have found a total of maybe 6 or 8 weapons, and they all weren't very good. The vendors had better stuff, and I didn't find really any armor as well. I think I might have found 1 or 2. You got these vast maps, and every now and then you'll find a pocket of loot, but you'll spend a lot of time going, all right, I'm going to go check out this entire area. There's got to be stuff, and you'll find nothing. There's nothing around, and it's easy to figure that out because there's a little bit of a fog of war, but for the most part, when you're in an area, everything will light up on your screen. And you'll go around and you're like, oh, this looks nice, but there's nothing here. There's a lot of empty space. They could have used this space for a lot of things, maybe more loot, some kind of random loot generator maybe, I don't know. But it's very limited, and it was very disappointing to me. And what I also didn't understand is you get a stash at your base. I didn't open it once. There was no reason to. You're not going to get any loot. This is not a loot game. There's pretty much nothing. So for me, Shadowrun Hong Kong is a 6 out of 10. The audio and art was amazing. I loved it. The missions were very unique. They were varied. They had some great writing. And the best part was an intelligent samurai ghoul to be a part of your party. However, the overglaring cons of the game would be the inventory. It is the worst inventory system I've ever seen. you're very limited to your monetary gains and purchases you can make within the game world. You can't customize your characters with new items, really, and the illusion of choice was apparent almost every step of the way. It didn't matter what I chose in my decision making. It always went back to an on-rails system, and the had no real consequences. So also the game felt very skeletal. The worlds, they're very big, they're very beautiful, but there was nothing in them. They were very empty. And there was one other issue. If you are a Windows 10 or a Windows 8 user, there is a major bug at this point. I don't know if they fixed it yet, but I couldn't get the game working. It would not launch at all. And what I had to do was basically change it to compatibility mode, get it to set to Windows 7, and then you'll fix your problem easily and you'll be able to run the game. So if you ask my opinion on whether or not you should get this game, I'd say wait for a sale. This is definitely the type of game where you kind of would pick it up, play it for a little bit, put it back down, come back to it. I'm really surprised that I didn't find the Hong Kong version on a tablet or iPhone, because the controls very much feel like it was a tablet-based game ported over to the PC. It really felt that way to me. I don't know about you guys. And when I went and looked into it and checked on my Play Store, I saw that there are other games, and they're like $3. I'm kind of getting ripped off on the Steam versions of them, the PC versions. They're like $3. You can pick them up on your phone. And from the reviews on there, a lot of people seem to have trouble with getting them to run. So I don't know if that's been addressed yet, but it might even be something you'd be worth looking at to see if you can get it for your phone. So, I'm jc.exe. If you enjoyed my review, please give me a like and a subscribe. I look forward to doing some more. Until next time.